that I just got up, walked out, and threw myself into one of the pools on the property.
Just
fully clothed.
like
fully clothed.
You anger dunked yourself.
I did anger dunk myself because I just didn't know what to do with my rage. It was strong.
That's a rage swim.
Ugh.
Welcome to Podlander Drunkcast, Outlander podcast. I'm Allison.
I'm Julie.
That's Janine.
Hey.
Julie, you want to give the folks some context? Because
Surely
I started.
don't know when it started. So.
Well, I started recording right before you threw yourself into the pool, and I know this story, which is why I started recording.
Okay. So, let me go back. Let's be meta. Let me talk about the discussion that Janine and I were actually having.
Yeah.
We were talking about how, for some reason, we are aging into our humor on this show, but really it's like Benjamin Buttoning backwards to a 12-year-old.
Yeah, we're just like middle school humor peak right now.
And I said Benjamin Button, and then I had to tell the story. So the story that Allison was referencing. Neil and I went on vacation in Mexico, like, what was that, 2012, something like that, I don't know. And we were staying in this little cabin that had an old VHS player and like a box full of old VHS movie cassettes. So we decided to watch Benjamin Button one day, and I was so mad at the end that I threw myself in a pool. That movie's just terrible.
I can't. I'm just like imagining you going, "What the?" and then throwing your hands up in the air.
I was silent.
You just like stood up and just like threw yourself in a pool.
And Neil was like, "What the?" And I was like, "That's how I feel about this movie."
Here's a true thing about Julie. First of all, she's prone to gestures of this sort. One. Two, unrelated fact that just happens to also have come up in the last 30 seconds. Everyone who knows her, and I would guess this probably also extends to everyone who listens to her on the internet, eventually develops the what? and I just heard Janine do it for the first time. I feel so proud.
Yeah.
What? What?
I do that. I mean, I'm by myself a lot, and I got to tell you, that's my exclamation to my now two mice roommates that are in my apartment.
Oh, God.
Every time I see them, I'm just like, what? God damn it.
Hey, you know what? At least you don't have any more bedbug roommates.
Yeah, I'm just trading out roommates. At some point, I'll get Jasper, but till then, bedbugs and mice, living the dream.
Oh, God, it's too bad I already did Welcome to Podlander Drunkcast and Outlander podcast, because that would have been a perfect point. Hold on. We didn't get any of this. Hold on.
Oh, yeah.
There we
go.
go.
I'm on my dinner beer at the moment, so here's me dinner beering it.
There's a show coming out this week. Mindy Kaling's new show is called Never Have I Ever. It's on Netflix. It's very charming and good. It's sort of very loosely inspired by her teenage years. So it's this high school sophomore who just making her way through life. And I cannot remember exactly the terminology, but she winds up at what she calls a no parents party, as all the coolest kids do. She winds up at a no parents party, and the incredibly hot high school guy who is so hot that he has multiple Instagram fan accounts.
Oh my God.
The character, not the actor. The character in the
Hilarious.
show has
Great.
Instagram fan accounts. Offers her a beer, and she says, "Yeah, something like," I'm paraphrasing, but it's something like, yeah, love the old bread water." Or maybe it's bread juice. I don't remember, but it made me laugh really hard. It's a very good show.
That's funny.
Oh, man.
Anyway, we are here the day after watching the most recent episode of Outlander to record an episode about it, because once again we ran into trouble on the Sunday. So it's no longer, it's not 420, it's 427, which is less sexy. But I think Julie might be a little high. Is that true?
Yeah, that's
Good.
true.
Atta girl. And I heard Ice, you're drinking something?
Yes, I made a whiskey sour and then topped it off with ginger ale. It's fucking delicious.
Oh, that sounds
Ooh,
good.
a little floater of ginger ale? Mm-hmm. That sounds delicious. Janine, what's your dinner beer?
Allagash White, and I got after I do my calculus quiz, because I'm in an undergraduate calculus class, because I'm ridiculous, I'm going to drink an Oberon.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm very excited about that.
Love an Oberon.
Yeah.
Me, I'm drinking a claw because it's quarantine.
Yeah.
And I'm going to chase that with some healthy indignation about the adaptive choices at the end of Outlander's mostly very good 5th season. It's tart. It's a tart beverage. So we'll see how that goes. We're talking about Mercy Shall Follow Me, the, 10th?
Yep,
9th?
season
10th?
5, episode 10.
Yeah.
10th episode of Outlander's 5th season. It takes its name, sort of, from a chapter in the 6th book, which is not. I've got a whole theory about guys. I have some high-level shit locked and loaded, and there's enough that we're gonna have to save some of it for an in the books chat, which we'll do through Crowdcast for our patrons this week.
Okay.
But I've still got to talk about some of it today. What I can't tell you how much I just want to jump in by talking to you about the dead whale and the Russian boars.
Okay.
But I can't because those things aren't in this episode. Those are book things.
Okay.
So instead, we should start by just talking about what actually happens in this episode, which again comes in part from book 6 because they took what I think is the longest book in the Outlander series, cut, let's just say most of it, and decided they didn't have enough material, so they decided to pull shit from the next book.
Wait, what?
Yeah, we are all of a sudden in season 6, and I don't want to spoil anything, so I won't, for book readers or non-book readers, I won't say what I think is going to happen next, but based on some footage that we've seen of the next couple episodes and some things the actors have said in interviews, it sure seems like the big finale event, which will probably be set up in the next episode, is something that's also from book 6.
So are they just like sticking with their bizarre time doesn't mean anything in this show? Let's get to New York in a day.
I don't
kind
know.
Of thing?
I think that's part of it. I also think that maybe they just got daunted by the amount of plot and the fact that Sam and Kate in particular are becoming more and more popular, and it's going to make it harder and harder for them to film things, and they obviously want to keep them happy, and they're going to be in demand for other projects, and I don't know. I'm not sure what it is, but it's weird. So here is what, and this is my thesis.
I'm here. I'm just trying to move away from the fan, but I'm listening. Please go on with your thesis. Please.
Here's my thesis. This episode would be a great last 3 episodes of this season. Great.
This one episode.
This one episode would be a great last 3 episodes of this season. I'm sure that frankly, the back half of this season has been very good, even when it's made choices that we don't necessarily love. Julie, in particular, I know has not been super high on all of them, but it is a sharp enough uptick in quality that it is sort of, at least in our listenership, seems to be reminding people of how good season 1 was. By contrast, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, right, this show used to be really thoughtful and surprising and funny and emotionally affecting and intense and all of those things. And as we've said a couple times in the last 4 or 5 episodes, there have definitely been moments in all of the season so far that have matched the level of season 1. But this is the first season in quite a while, since season 2, I would say, where there are episodes that match the quality of season 1. And I didn't even really realize that there had been that much of a dip until there was sort of contrast. So this episode has a lot of problems, and we are going to talk about them.
Okay.
But the biggest problem is just that for some reason, they have no interest in a lot of what made season 1 great, which was sitting in the moments in the world, right? Like being at the gathering or hot pest, Claire, like that. It's, you know what this whole show needs is more hot pests.
That's very specific.
It is, and I'm using that as an example because it's not that the show needs more literal hot piss. Not piss of any temperature, not a requirement for quality television. What it needs is more stopping and doing something rather than just barreling through the plot, which is why I think we responded so well to the Beardsley episode as an example, which is why the locust episode, if it had just been like, oh no, there are locusts on the ridge, that could have been really great.
Yeah.
Like those are the things that have really stuck out. And there are ways to get those things in and still race through plot. And in this case, they took two storylines, related storylines, mushed them together for reasons that make perfect sense, and I do not think it's necessarily a bad choice. But to do it in one episode, regardless as to what happens next, and I think the content of the next two episodes might actually make this choice even worse. But to do it in one episode completely forces you to remove all of the hot pests. There's no more hot pests. It's just like, wow!
Next set piece, next
right?
set piece, next
yeah.
set piece.
This episode is cursed. It kills our microphones.
Kills a microphone, kills a microphone.
We think we're gonna record something good.
We're back. We just spent the last several minutes going like this. Cursed episode. This is a cursed episode. Nothing's working for us. Is this because millennials are joining TikTok?
I haven't gotten my account set up yet, but now I need to.
Oh man.
Who would follow me on TikTok? Don't do it. It's going to be horrible.
Oh, I mean, of course I'll follow you. I'm never going to make one. I literally just do it to watch dumb shit, and it makes me so happy.
I love it.
The cat is glaring at me because I'm not holding up the blanket for her to crawl inside.
I've been living that life with Sophie for a few days now. She's very particular about her schedule and what things happen at what times.
I got to do this. Talk amongst yourselves. Hold on.
I think I've narrowed in when I'm going to get Jasper. Or
when?
I'm going to try to do mid-June or end of June. Depends on my friend if she's coming out this way or not. She works the Renaissance Fair, which I haven't talked with her. Hopefully we'll chat this week. But if she is not coming out this way because live stuff, then I'm going to go out there and get Jasper. And if she is, I'm going to try and convince her to get Jasper and bring him to me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Which I don't think it'll be hard to convince her. I think it's just a matter of us talking about it.
I'm looking forward to you having that little guy.
God, me too. My fucking mice roommate. Get them the fuck out of here. Give
Yeah,
me
man.
Jasper. At least with Jasper, I feel cool cuddling with. Mice
Although I
handsome.
will tell you this, there was a little baby mouse in our apartment once, and our cat Speck, who we thought would be a killer, was just a big fat idiot. He'd just play with it like it was a toy, and I'd see this poor little mouse just gasping for air. And I told Neil to take it outside and kill it, and he came back, and I was like, could you kill it? And Neil's like, you don't need to know.
Oh.
I have high hopes for Jasper. I do feel like because he's a rescue and he's lived the street life.
He's very handsome.
He is
such a
very handsome.
fellow, man.
Nancy she loves to hunt a bug. She's very good at it, and she loves to stare out the window and dream of hunting birds and or people, and definitely killing cat doppelgangers. She definitely wants to do that. However, we also had a tiny baby mouse in the apartment, and one time she sort of chased it around. It was so little that we saw it exactly once, and that was it. But she would block it inside the piece of the counter it was hiding behind, chase it around, and then would get bored and walk away. And literally never, that was it. She had no interest in the mouse. Also, once, it was the week that Tom and I moved in. Well, I moved in a couple weeks before him, but the week that Tom moved in, we were setting things up in the kitchen, and all of a sudden Tom goes, Allison, look. And we're in a garden apartment, and by that I mean literally there was a garden outside our windows, because there's this very cool like little garden curated by one of our neighbors who I think used to do it in exchange for having part of his rent not charged or
It
whatever.
is a very cute garden.
It's very it's weird, like weird and eclectic, and it uses a bunch of found objects and sculpture-y shit. It's cool. But he was like, Allison, look. So I turned and I look out the window, and there was this giant, like, daisy something, begonia maybe, I don't know. I don't fucking know about flowers. But it was a big flower with a big bulb and, like, a big iris. And there was this tiny mouse who had crawled up the stem to... Oh, no, this is not No Story. This is adorable.
No, it's a cute story.
Crawled up
it's too cute.
to the little flower and was... Yum, 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 yum.
Oh
Feasting
my
on
God.
pollen, and it was tipping over from the weight. So he was like, yum, 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 like
that's
almost upside
adorable.
down. And then he climbed down and went to the next flower and did the same thing.
My ovaries just exploded,
It
and
was
it's not
so
even a
fucking
human baby.
It was
That's
so
cute.
fucking cute.
Oh
It was
my
adorable.
goodness.
Anyway, Patty, so in this episode, this is the Stephen Bonnet episode.
We obviously kind of are both like, ugh.
Yeah, I mean, the bummer is all I want to do is talk about these chapters in the book, which I think is a good indication of sort of the issue with this episode, which is that there are definitely good things. The chief amongst them, two like really, really solid performances. It's maybe the best that Sophie Skelton has ever been, particularly given that she has to sell some truly bogus shit and like really sells the crap out of it. And then Ed Spielers is just
He was
very
so good.
Very
Oh,
good.
God, disgusting.
Yeah,
I loved him.
terrifying.
He was so good.
And he does a really good job, like Tobias Menzies, and this is about the only time that I'm going to compare Blackjack
Invoke
Randall.
that name.
Right? I don't want to compare Blackjack Randall with Stephen Bonnet because they are very different characters, and it is not because of all of the work that they did to try to differentiate these two characters, which are so similar, because these characters are not similar. They've never been similar. Nothing about them is similar, other than that they're both evil.
Is that a rant for something else later?
Yeah, no, hold on just a second. I'm so sorry.
This is going to be a fun episode, I think.
I don't know what's going to happen. I have to give Neil the computer at 7. Sorry, 7:30. 7:30.
Oh, we'll get there. We'll be done before then. So they're not the same. There's a whole thing in the after the show shit about how they really had to guess who said this. We wanted to make sure to differentiate them because they're so similar. And we really wanted to be able to show the ways in which they're different. Like, motherfucker, first of all, one of them is like 6'3", dark hair, top-notch jacting, eyes that can move in and out from the sides of his head based on his acting ability.
Gecko
Also
qualities.
looks like the first husband of one of our protagonists. The other is a nefarious blonde leprechaun who like scampers about doing pirate shit and being a sociopath. Like he's chaos and Blackjack is order, and like one is a sadist and the other is just a fucking asshole. Like they're not just a fucking asshole, a giant fucking asshole. But he's not a sadist in the way that Blackjack Randall is a sadist, right? One has like all kinds of issues around sexuality and his family. The other is just like a superstitious Irish smuggling sailor motherfucker who can hide a jewel in his tooth, apparently. You know, they're very different characters. Blackjack Randall never took a jewel out of his tooth. Ever.
No.
Not ever. That would be
No.
like saying we really wanted to differentiate between the Duke of Sandringham and Bonnie Prince Douchebag because they're both royals. Like no, they're
like,
they're
where's the
not
nuance?
similar.
Where's
They're
the
not
nuance?
similar at all, and they do not seem similar. Right? I didn't think about Blackjack Randall at all until the guy was like, "Well, we really had to differentiate." So then they do some humanizing bullshit that's completely unnecessary, but which I will say was very good for Ed Spielers. Anyway, Patty, let's talk about the episode. Julie, where do we begin?
So Cold Open is a cobbler shop where they're putting a little heel on a shoe, and the only note I wrote was, "Cobbler, you brought her."
I thought for sure that this is apparently my childhood trauma rearing its ugly head. I just thought for sure that the thing you would have written down would have been a joke about me.
Shoemaker.
Yeah, because I
I
spent.
never think of your last name that way. I
No,
don't.
neither do I.
Oh, people! The whole time I was growing up, want to make me some shoes? Want to make me
Oh
some
my God.
People are stupid.
It's a lack of imagination.
Children are idiots.
Well, you know. Anyway, making shoes. It is a lengthy title card. An interesting choice that I say that in a good way, not a bad way, but a lengthy, unnecessarily lengthy title card. Like
So, Janine, so you know what I mean. It's a pair of shoes, and they're putting an extra length of heel on one because somebody's leg, it's a woman's pair of shoes, somebody's leg is shorter than the other.
Okay.
Remember that.
Okay.
one of these legs is shorter than the other. What?
And then we
One of
cut
these
to
legs-
the whorehouse based on my note that just says whorehouse.
Yeah, Outlander loves a whorehouse.
They really do. That's where all the business happens.
A kitty hoose. Mm-hmm. I prefer kitty hoose.
And at the kitty hoose, there sit
Hold on, say
Pippin
it again. Say it again.
And at the kitty hoose,
One more time.
at the kitty hoose,
Put just a little bit more Arkansas on it, just for me.
and at the kitty hoose,
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Pippin and Stephen Bonnet are just sitting there drinking a cup of tea like some gentlemen at the kitty house. And we find, you know what? I never put two and two together that Pippin is actually fucking Bonnet's lawyer. I never really put that together.
Oh, I think I just put that together now. But you said it. That makes sense.
So they're in business with each other, and Pippin is just a piece of shit. It's gross. Like every time I see him, I'm thinking Hobbit, and he's just a slimy piece of goo.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. I mean, and I guess that by that I mean fortunate casting, right? Like Billy Boyd should get to do things other than be Pippin for the rest of his life because he's a
Yes.
good actor,
Yes.
right? And he's good in this. But every time he would open his mouth in that chirpy little Hobbit voice of his and say something just fucking evil, I would just think like, no second breakfast for you. No, you don't get any second breakfast. No, none.
It was a little hard. Sometimes it's hard to take somebody who you know so hard from a character, and it's weird, right? So it just felt weird.
No
That's how I felt watching Lost with the other Hobbit.
Oh yeah,
Dominic Monaghan. I watched
He played
Lost
Charlie,
for
right?
Yeah,
long
Charlie.
enough that I now think of him as Charlie and not
yeah.
as Mary. Like when I think about Dominic Monaghan, I think not Penny's boat.
I was gonna say the hand, not pennies.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, but he had to like do that for fucking years to
Oh,
get
yeah.
away from the Hobbit thing.
I
Yeah, he
mean,
did.
Pippin's
Daniel
just back
Radcliffe
right
has been putting in the work, making weird fucking like cool weird movies for a
Like
long
being in
time.
Equus.
Yeah,
Like,
and doing very serious, like high level theater shit. He's been tap dancing. He's been fucking horses. Like all kinds of shit.
I met Elijah Wood once. It was really nice.
Elijah Wood.
no, not
Who
Elijah
are you
Wood.
talking about?
We were talking
We're
about Daniel
talking
Radcliffe, but Elijah Wood. Yeah.
Harry Potter.
Oh well, hey, but you know what?
Also Elijah Wood. North.
but
Huck
yeah,
Finn.
Listen, the reason I confuse them is because I want them to do a show together because they look like each other.
They do look like each other. Have
Yeah.
you seen Swiss Army Man?
I have.
Me too.
my
Allison, thank you for recommending that.
Jesus
it was so
Christ,
funny.
that movie is so fucking good. I love it
It's
so much.
so bizarre. It's
It's so
very
good.
good.
Guys,
God, it's so good.
Listeners, in these quarantine times, if you need a weird watch, I highly recommend Swiss Army Man, also known as the Daniel Radcliffe farting corpse movie.
Yeah, you'll never think about farts again the same way.
Yep, and by also known as, that's not a cute nickname I have for it. If you Google farting corpse movie, what
That's
will
a
come
Google.
up is
No.
Swiss Army Man. It's him and Paul Dano. It's very good. Anyway, so they're in
Pippin.
they're in the whorehouse.
And this is we find out that Pippin is going to get a cut of River Run, right? So
Yeah.
that's why he's working for Bonnet.
So they have this scene where, first of all, Bonnet is talking about in the crowdcast. They were talking about how Bonnet is at least sex positive, and like is interested in sees the physical beauty in a wide range of body types, and doesn't like. It was funny. They were trying really hard to find redeeming qualities in a character that doesn't have any.
No, none.
And we're doing a better job of it than the show does. Anyway, which is a goal of this episode. They should have just talked to the Drunkcast listeners. Oh, I just heard Sophie. Bless her heart.
Yeah.
So basically, the scene exists to lay out for us that Bonnet's plan is to claim Jeremiah and Brianna, right? And then Jocasta will have an unhelpful. It's not the word I wanted, but I'm going with it. An unhelpful accident, untimely accident. So that Jemmy will inherit, and then Bonnet will get all the cash, and then Forbes is going to get a cut of that cash. A lot like he wants a second manor house.
Oh my God.
So I will say we promised yesterday was listener and patron Gianna's birthday. She spent her fucking 25th birthday watching the two of us watch this episode of television. We promised her a rant about Forbes, though to be
Sorry,
fair,
Neil's making cocktails, you guys, if you can hear that in the background.
He's doing a great job.
Yeah.
the cheery sounds of ice and steel. Love it. It's great. I guess it's probably aluminum and not steel, but you feel me. Anyway, so my rant about, I don't really have a rant about Forbes because I actually think that maybe the show does a better job making him a son of a bitch.
Forbes is Pippin, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
and certainly he is not as involved in this shit as in the books as he is in the show.
Mm-hmm. So fucking Bonnet makes some gross joke about laying low because Pippin tells him, "Hey, you need to chill with the smuggling of women because everybody knows you're here, and I need you to not break the law big time before we get River Run, right?" And Stephen Bonnet's like, "Oh, you mean I need to lay low?" And he makes some joke about one of the whores that Allison was referring to a minute ago, and it was lay low under my regular mare.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was disgusting.
Oh.
It was pretty gross.
My face
It was pretty
scrunched. I
gross.
didn't
I
like
will
that.
say I'm gonna try to find her name right now. The
She did a really
sex
good job
worker
with
in
the
question.
Thankless
Epi,
role.
Yeah, who I think has some good scenes near the end. I'm not sure I would call it totally thankless because I think some of it is actually a little bit complicated. And some of the listeners in the Crowdcast rightly pointed out that it does not demonize the sex worker, nor does it do that hooker with a heart of gold shit.
You're right.
She's like a complicated person who has to weigh on one side her personal safety and income and livelihood in general, right? Because she could lose fucking everything. And then the other hand, what is right in human decency? Which is it's complicated. Everybody would do the right thing all the time if it was always the easiest thing to do. I just wish that people might try a little harder. Anyway, her name is Leah Shine, and she was great. And
the actress, and her character's name was Epi.
Yeah, I kept trying to come up with a good EpiPen joke,
She's what?
if you've got a justice allergy, use the EpiPen. I don't know. I got nothing but Epi. Leah Shine is her name. It is her third credit ever. Her previous two IMDb credits are shorts. So way to go, Leah Shine. You were great.
That could be a rising star we're looking at there.
All she does in this scene is get pointed to by Stephen Bonnet and wear a corset out of which her boobs are tumbling. It is a plentiful display of cleavage.
And then I made a prediction that Stephen Bonnet was going to kill Pippin, and I wrote that down, and I was wrong.
Oh.
The instinct was right. The person was wrong.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right. So
there will be no more first or second breakfasts for Forbes.
Yeah.
Little spoiler.
Yeah. Sorry.
In the sky. In the
In Hobbit heaven.
in Hobbit.
Oh,
Heaven.
sorry. In the kitty house upstairs.
In the kitty hoose down below, I think, for Forbes.
There's just plenty of potatoes and ale.
Potatoes and ale. No, not in hell.
Samwise.
No, I get it. Potatoes. There are no potatoes in hell, Pepin.
Oh my God.
There definitely are no potatoes in hell.
Stupid offices, you silly.
Oh,
So
boy.
here is a question that I have for you, Allison, and I don't know if this will lead you too much into a book discussion, but why the fuck are Jamie, Claire, Bree, and Roger all in town together?
Well, so they went to Toon to. I'm feeling the vowels today. Sorry. To sort of get, I think, to get information is a big part of it, and also to prepare for this thing. It's not the same place. They have to travel to get to Wiley's Landing, which is where the Jamie and Roger part of this episode takes place.
Right.
A big part of it, anyway. So they are leaving Brianna and Claire safely in a major city by the standards of the time, right? They're not like half a mile down on the beach. They're in Wilmington, and Wiley's Landing is not in Wilmington. This is another instance of the show maybe not doing the best job actually explaining what's happening.
I knew
they
that
were
there
not
was a
in the same
distance.
place.
I knew that there was a distance between them, but I also knew that Stephen Bonnet was in the city. Right?
No.
And I know that
he was not supposed to be, right? He was supposed to be meeting them at Wiley's Landing, coming from who knows where. They did not think that he was in Wilmington. Or they would definitely would not have just hung around.
He was, and that's why he saw Brianna in the street.
Yes. Yeah. But
so I guess my original question was that ever a thing in the book where they were all in the same place at the same time? Like, did he see her? Is that how they moved this part along?
There's more. It's a little confusing. And I spent today revisiting the chapters leading up to and the very long chapter that is the Battle of Wiley's Landing, which is what it's called. And they're great chapters. I stopped to record this episode in the middle of the chapter that covers what happens with Brianna and Claire, so I don't remember precisely the circumstances. But basically, if I remember correctly, Bonnet gets like a little idea that maybe there's something fishy about this deal, so he does not go. In the books, he does not go. He sends other people who are going to steal the whiskey from quote-unquote Alexander Malcolm and kill Jamie and Roger, who they know are involved. And that's going to be that. That's the plan. While Bonnet goes after Claire and Brianna. And what I do not remember is if he sees them and goes after them or if it's a total fucking accident.
Okay.
Either way, what's true is that he is not where he is supposed to be. There's like a whole deal, they confirm with a whole bunch of people what is going to happen and who is going to bring him and when and where and all of that shit. And then it all goes to hell.
Okay. So it was part of it. It wasn't just poorly planned. It was just a part of the story.
Yeah, it's that Bonnet is wily, right? And I think the circumstances here confirm that. It's just that then we have to assume that he saw them in the street and none of them saw him.
Right.
Which and then somehow he tracked them to this remote beach. It's a little weird, but the mechanics are basically the same.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Okay.
So
I was surprised. I was just surprised that the whole family was there.
Yeah.
That's why. Because I thought it would just be like Jamie and Roger, but Claire and Bree decided to tag along.
It's supposed to be at quite a distance. Yeah, they're not at the same place. They certainly don't go to Wiley's Landing. They don't want Brianna in particular anywhere near where Stephen Bonnet is.
And then we discover that Meehan is going to be the stand-in Alexander Malcolm. So they've got him all dressed up in a tri-corner hat, and then Claire has to give him a makeover. She's got to beat his mug because he's got the little dot tattoos. And she says something about Clay will cover that up. And I was like, makeup.
I think he should just go, what? They're my freckles. I have sensitive skin. I tan easily. I got freckles.
They're in town, and Claire is with Bree, and they're shopping. It's a shopping montage-ish. She gets a syringe made.
Oh.
Yeah, she's ordering the glass tube, and I think, did she say, like, brass? Somewhere
He said brass.
They're making the metal pieces.
he said brass because he didn't understand what she was talking about. She tried to explain it, and he goes, "Oh, I've seen those. The ones I've seen were made of brass." And she's like, just nodding at him, just because he's just the glass blower.
Yeah.
He's going to blow the little glass tube.
Yeah. So bitches be shopping.
They are shopping. They are strolling around in their knitwear with their little baskets over their arms, arm in arm, like through the mud and shit.
Like
So-
it's just a wonderful Sunday.
Yes, exactly.
So the plan here is that Claire and Brianna are going to stay in Wilmington and run errands and get seashells by the seashore. And
And the birth of the song happened at that point in America.
yeah, that's true. That's a true story. And in fact, only the result of time travel. It's a closed loop. Brianna learned that tongue twister when she was studying theater, which was her first of the 17 majors she had in her 2 years of college.
I relate to that.
And then she traveled in time and brought the tongue twister back with her
Yeah.
and shared it with someone else, which is how it was created. And then the world exploded. Anyway,
Time is fucked up.
it is.
I did have another question about the shopping montage.
Yeah.
I think they kind of made a point of it weirdly because all the extras walking around. How are Bree and Claire walking around with no hats?
There's a thing in the mix where Claire fucking hates bonnets, which is funny because she also hates Stephen Bonnet, but in this case, I'm talking about the headwear.
Okay.
And people are constantly shaming her for not covering her hair up. And so every once in a while, just to be a dick, she'll take like a handkerchief and pin it to the top of her head. Like,
That's
see,
awesome.
I'm covered now. Look at how covered my hair is.
I love that's a character moment I wish was in here where she was just like,
Oh, yeah.
fuck off.
Yeah, well, all kinds of fucking character moments I wish were in here.
Yeah.
There's
charming.
this. You know what? This is as good a time as any to do these things. To do this in particular. When I was revisiting these chapters, right at the beginning of the first of the 3 chapters that are sort of covered in the last 2 episodes, which is called "Dead Whale." She's talking about how they're running errands, they're doing this, they're doing that, and Roger and you know what? I actually took a picture of it and in my Kindle and sent it to Julie as a text message, saying, "Why isn't Claire funny anymore?" Because
And then she sent me text from the chapter, and it
Yeah.
was fucking hilarious.
So here, hold on. It is, there we go. This is a direct quote. And a reminder that the reason we have so much voiceover in the show is that Claire's chapters are all first person. So anytime they're not all Claire chapters. We get chapters from Jamie's perspective and Roger's perspective and Brianna's perspective, and sort of the number of characters who have POV chapters grows. But all of them are removed, whereas Claire's are first person always. And the whole first book is from her perspective. Anyway, the quote is this.
Okay.
After which, presumably, Jamie and Roger, having located Mr. Bonnet, would drop round to his place of business and take turns either shooting him dead or running him through with a sword before riding back to the mountains, congratulating themselves on a job well done, or so I understood the plan to be. Right? That is, I would fucking
hilarious.
love more clarification monologues if it was funny. I was trying to think of the last time we got voiceover from Claire that was funny. And the
I don't
only
remember
time-
one.
Oh, there is one. It's
yeah.
fucking I closed my eyes and thought of England.
Thought of England, right?
And I remember watching that scene because you laughed so hard that I thought you were choking. It was because it was so unexpected and so funny in an episode that's really dark and upsetting, and it was just such a good, surprising, weird joke.
And it was hilarious.
Yeah. So, and I wish that there were more opportunities like that. I wish that Claire got to tell more jokes in general. She does occasionally joke, but I specifically wish the monologues were less like, "It was spring and the trees were blooming. And like the passage of time, I too was moving slowly. I gazed upon this magnificent vista." You know, like all that shit. It's fine. And
It's too close. That's too close.
Katrina does a
there's-
fine job with it.
Yeah, but there's a lot of melodrama.
Like
inside
a
of it.
little,
Maybe-
like some
less.
jokes. I wish Claire is pretty salty and pretty amused by her husband, and it's a very funny image. Like, "Good day, sir. Happy murder to you." And then they go like, "Trot, trot, trot. Your turn, sir." Like at the end of Death Proof, where they take turns beating the shit out of Kurt Russell. Like,
Oh, yeah.
And you, after you, I guess it would be like, "And it's your turn, mate. Go and get him with the sword. Aye, now it's my turn. I'll get him with my pistol. And then Mr. Bonnet, and then Stephen Bonnet would be like, okay, give me a breather. I need a breather. And then they would all, like, it's a funny image. I wish that shit was in there. I wish there was more of it. That's all I'll say.
Have you impersonated Bonnet yet? Because that was fucking hilarious.
I don't think so, but thank you.
Breather.
I've got a gem in me tooth.
I call it me lucky charm.
Everyone's always after me lucky charm. That's
Oh
why
my God.
that's why I keep it in me tooth.
Oh, that's why he's doing, like, he's pillaging
Can
and
I
running all over the place.
smuggle? I'm going to smuggle some whiskey. That's my other lucky charm. Meet my whore. She's also my lucky charm.
That Lucky Charm, like marshmallows, it's a whiskey, whores, what's a gem in a tooth? No, a tooth, just a tooth.
It's magically delicious. Okay. All right. We're getting nowhere. We've been going 45 minutes.
Hold on. Here we go.
You guys really don't want to talk about the episode, which I'm
Jamie?
down with. This is fun.
I'm ready. I'm here. Jamie, Roger, and who we and fuck me in are at Wiley's Landing, which is essentially a houseboat somewhere on this river where Philip Wiley, if you remember him from the wedding episode,
Raisin
Costa's
face.
wedding,
We've been
is the
calling him
raisin
Raisin
face,
face.
like
Oh, yeah.
weirdo.
He's the
fop.
fop. Yeah.
yeah.
So he's got this little dock where he receives his smugglings.
Well, his lawfully bought goods,
Sure.
Sure.
mostly.
But Stephen Bonnet's about to bring some smugglings in or pick some up, right?
Yeah.
Pick
They're
up
there for
Jamie's.
the whiskey.
So they're ready to kill Bonnet. Like he's scheduled to meet them there. And Roger tells Jamie that he wants to kill Bonnet. Like, I've been thinking about it. And I just had a really hard time sleeping last night. And when I woke up this morning, I realized really the only thing that's going to make me feel any better about anything was if I kill Stephen Bonnet. And Jamie's all like, sounds right. So Roger wants to kill Stephen Bonnet.
It's another thing that, like, it doesn't necessarily translate well from the books without adding more dialogue, right? Like that scene on the back is Roger being like, listen, it's from Roger's perspective. So he says he can see on Jamie's face that Jamie's like, well, you're a terrible shot. You've literally never killed a man. You've never been in a war. On the other hand, I don't want to disrespect you, and you really, like, you have more reason to kill him than I do, and I'm here to back you up. And he sort of weighs all of this, and it comes down to being sort of emerging from the mutual respect that they have sort of started to develop after Snakebite Gate. And here it's just like Roger's like, no, I should kill him. She's my wife. And Jamie's like, oh, yep, you're right. I forgot. That's you're right. That's in the marriage contract.
I called it the bro accord.
It's the bro accord.
They fucking made a bro accord about what to do about the rapist.
Oh, God.
And it was to kill him, but Roger gets to kill it. And then I've got Claire and Bree see whales.
Yeah.
Is that a moment where
It was actually very surreal to think about what she talks about here is that whales were so plentiful back then. They're just like playing like 300 meters offshore. I don't even know if it was deep enough for them to swim.
I mean, I think it was probably also closer for us than it was for them, right? Like, the camera zoomed in. But they're gathering seashells by the seashore and also seaweed by the pea bushes. I don't know.
Something for medicine or whatever. Right?
Yeah, they're getting and
sushi.
Brianna's also going to get shells to make a mobile for Jamie, so it'll sleep easier, so she can get laid. Is the implication? Because shit. So then all of a sudden there are whales, and it's a really cool little moment that's an invention of the show.
Oh, okay.
Which is sort of neat, where it's not a thing that happens anymore. Whaling is just sort of picking up steam, and then they're talking about Moby Dick, and Brianna loves Moby Dick, and so does Claire, and so does Julie, by the way.
Ugh, I said don't bring Moby Dick into this. And that's not a slight. That's Baby Tree right there. That's Baby Tree.
It's like that's more than a handful,
Oh my God, it's really too bad that we couldn't make Moby Dick jokes last week.
They did end up making it into something which I thought was inventive and cool.
Yeah, I agree.
But this like reference felt so forced, and I was just like, oh, come on, why do you guys keep doing this to me, saying shit that just sounds so fake and like, ugh, okay, fine, whatever, whales, Moby Dick, I get it. And then Claire and Brianna have an old woman off where they decide who's faster and who can chase each other down the beach, where I would, at this point in my life, just be like, run ahead, I'm just gonna walk.
I mean, to be fair, they're talking about how they used to race on the beach when she was a child. So it's
Right,
like
right,
a
right.
nostalgia off rather than an old woman off.
But I feel like, not for me, honey, you run ahead.
Do you want it? Should we race? And then
And then they split up, and it was at this point during the crowdcast when I screamed, why the fuck are you splitting up?
Well, because they think that Stephen Bonnet is at Wiley's Landing.
Sure,
Spoiler alert,
sure.
he is not. But Brianna takes off her boots so she can put her toes in the water. And Claire goes up the dunes to get seashells, which is not how dunes or seashells work.
No,
That's
that doesn't make any
true.
sense. Good
I didn't even
God.
think about that. Like, how did those seashells get up there? Was that like
Well, it's from the
3 eons ago?
It's
Those
from
seashells
it's
are
from
old.
season 3 from that hurricane. That's what it's from.
Full grown maple.
Jesus Christ.
Janine, that was fantastic.
I'm
Fuck
so
it
proud
out.
of you. Season 3 reference.
Oh, man.
Oh,
I want to make you a badge.
Janine, that was so good. Okay. So so they split up. This is going to go well. Meanwhile, back at Wiley's
Back to the
Landing.
shit shed.
Yeah. Shit shed.
Sorry, that's Wiley's Landing.
It's a regular Doom hut.
Yeah.
And it's Bonnet pulls up, but we realize he sent flunkies instead. No Bonnet. It's just 3 dudes.
And there's a quick fight where Roger is like leaping out of the way of whatever the fuck. It's actually a pretty good fight. And Julie rightly pointed out that it's the first time in a while that we've gotten the old fashioned kick and punch and fight. And then we kick and then we punch and then we fight.
It was truly that. And Allison, there's I have a note here to remind you about something.
Okay.
BO face.
Oh my God. Well, the guy, you know how Russell Crowe looks? He just looks like he has body odor.
Yeah. He looks sweaty.
This guy has BO face, where it's like you can be very good looking and still have BO face, where
Yeah.
there's just something about you where you're like, you haven't bathed in a while, and it's your hair could be perfectly clean, and I would still know that you have body odor. And Russell Crowe, an objectively attractive man, has BO face, major BO face, huge B, and so does this guy, the like Bonnet stand-in. So they have a kick and punch and fight, and then we kick, and then we punch, and then we fight. And at one point, Roger's like, wouldn't you help me? And Jamie's like, you looked like you had it handled. And they're bantering. And, oh, yeah, it's a regular bromance. What did you call it?
Yes.
The bro
Bromance.
accord?
Well, I call it a bro accord earlier. That's when they agreed to agree about dudes.
Well,
God,
it's
I
bro
love
banter,
that.
so it's Branter? Branter?
Brancher?
Bronter?
Keep it in the hopper.
Broalog?
Broalog?
I guess if you really got into it, it could be a branologue.
Yep, Branolog. Done. Locked and loaded. That's it. That's a keeper. So then they're like, well, where's Stephen Bonnet?
Cut back to the beach. There's Stephen Bonnet. He attacks Claire, who has separated herself from the other person she's there with. Claire screams. Bree comes running. She grabs a gun. The powder is wet and it won't fire.
Oh, yeah.
Claire also is fighting with she's got a little knife with her, and Stephen Bonnet's like, what were you gonna do? I've got no quarrel with you. What were you gonna do with that little knife? Try to take me Lucky Charms? I've got up. Is it from a pot of gold? My Irish accent needs some work. Once upon a time, when Julie and I both at like a full decade apart, maybe, went to BADA, the British American Drama Academy. BADA. And while I was there, one of the people in my class was Irish and very cool, and I was totally daunted by her. And now I realize I also had a giant crush on her, but I was not in touch with that part of myself at the time. And when I met her, I said, "Hi, I'm Allison," and she said, "I'm Avril." And I went, "Avril?" And she said, "No, Avril." And I said, "Avril?" And she said, "No, Avril." I was like, "I'm sorry, you've lost me. Avril?" And she went, "Like Avril Lavigne?" And I went, "Oh, Avril, and I have never felt worse.
I feel like
It was
I feel like
terrible.
sometimes Irish names are just sometimes them setting themselves up to going like, you know what? I'm just gonna fuck with everybody.
I'm gonna give up like halfway through
because no one's
like,
gonna get it. So fuck them.
Avril.
I went to college with somebody named I still don't really know how to pronounce her name correctly.
Siobhan?
Siobhan, but it was with a B, so it was always like
Yeah, Siobhan.
Yeah, and then there was a I in there. I don't know. I love the spelling because it always feels like a challenge.
It does. Irish accents are about the only thing I can kind of muster, but the problem is it's every other accent I try eventually turns into the Irish accent.
Turns into the
I can't do an Irish accent. It's when I try to do anything else.
My problem now is I used to be very, very good at accents, and now, with the exception of being able to do drunk Julie when I'm also drunk, all I can do is Scottish and French because of this fucking podcast. So I try to do anything. I could be like, park your car and have a yard, right? Like, I can't do anything but Scottish and French now.
If you just did, but your Fergus is so good.
Thank you, Milo.
I get so much joy because that was season 2. Fergus was like that was my introduction to this whole thing, and I love when Fergus shows back up through you, Allison. So
Well, and also notoriously through Amelia Buzzell. I actually never fucking remember how to pronounce her last name. Amelia, help me out.
I thought it was Bazell.
Buzzell.
But once again, Amelia.
She didn't know
help
my
us
name
out.
was.
I think it's-
She didn't know my other name. She
Yeah,
only knew me as
she
Janine
for
a long
sure
while.
thought you were Janine for a long time. Amelia, help me with the last name. Anyway, Fergus now also immortalized through a song that she wrote for the Murtaugh Wake,
So
which
good.
eventually maybe we'll release as a single
Dude.
through iTunes. Like
We
not,
need to come,
not
we-
like.
But no, we were gonna make an album, weren't we? We have Doom
Well,
Hut.
the problem is that
We have-
most of our songs, quote unquote, are
IP.
are just covers. We've got a few originals.
We're
First of all,
we're solid in parody mode.
We've got
Solid in
all
parody
of
mode.
the versions of the Janine's Corner theme song. We've got all
That's-
those.
I feel
We've
that's a
got
B-side.
we kick and punch and kick and then we kick and then we punch and then we kick and punch and kick and punch and punch. We got that, and then we've got I Will Miss His Happy Face, the song Amelia wrote about,
Which was genius, yes,
Yeah.
and
So good.
is the best song on the album. I think.
oh for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll put that on the podcast at some
We're
point.
gonna come back to this one. We're gonna talk about this album at some point.
Yeah,
We got
we're gonna
this.
do that. Anyway, yeah.
So long kidnapping short. Womp, Bonnet gets Brianna,
Oh motherfucker.
and then I've got B&B. That means Bree and Bonnet.
Oh.
And I just wrote B&B on Bonnet Island. Turns out I was kind of right.
Yeah, it is sort of like a B&B. It's I think the easiest way to go about this is to say like off of Nightmare Island, Shutter Island. That's with D's, not T's, because you're shuddering. Shutter Island.
Ooh, nice.
Off of Shutter Island, the folks find out that Bonnet has Brianna. Claire wakes up and she's gone, and her shoes are out there by the ocean where she was dipping her little toes. And Roger and Jamie show up, and they're like, Bonnet wasn't there. That's because he was here. Oh, yes, Brianna. And then they have to go trying to find out what happened to her. And that is what is happening when we're not on Shutter Island.
Hold on, I'm chewing some ice. Keep talking.
And then also we get one scene where Forbes. We're gonna end with Shutter Island and then talk about the book shit. So that is what's happening until the end of the episode. That's what's happening with Jamie and Claire and Roger and
Doing this Shutter Island
Fuck me
bullshit?
and Fergus. No, they're trying to figure out what happened, where they can find Brianna. Right. Then Forbes shows up at Riverrun. Because Jocasta has requested a meeting. There's a lot of very funny banter where Duncan Innes is trying to like put a pillow behind her back, be like, whatever you want, my dear. And she's like, would you shut up and leave me alone?
Just get the fuck out of the room.
I'm about to have a meeting with my lawyer. Just leave me be. And there's actually a pretty funny line of dialogue where he's like, are you feeling well? You've had so many headaches lately. Which
Means she's not fucking.
yeah, she hasn't had headaches. She hasn't had any headaches. I mean, if she has, not that many. It's subtle, but it's really smart. So, point being, the meeting she's looking forward to is with Forbes, who shows up
Pippin.
with
Oh, yeah.
Just to
Pippin,
remind you.
Yeah. I'm with
who
you.
shows up shortly after first breakfast to take a meeting
A spot of tea.
about some gifts she would like to bestow upon her living relatives. Not changing her will, active gifts she wants to give out, because you can't take it with you. And then Forbes goes, "You can't take what with you?" She goes, "My fortune." It's great. So she wants to give 20 pounds to Marsley and Fergus's new baby and 100 pounds each to the other kids, which is discrimination against babies, I think. And she wants to give money to Marsley and Fergus, and she wants to give money to Brianna and Roger, and it's like 20 pounds here, 100 pounds there. She decides she wants to give 2,000 pounds to Brianna and Roger, and it's just like, and it obviously is bringing her a lot of joy. She's
loving
She's in
it.
a dark place, and now... And there's a whole thing with Jocasta and money that I think will probably actually never get addressed. It's a 2-book subplot that I think is never going to get addressed. But we'll see. So I can't talk about it yet in the event that it still comes up. But someday, if it doesn't come up in the show, we will be talking about The Frenchman's Gold, which gets...
Oh, they did sort of bring it up.
They
It was
introduce it.
right, but they're not giving any attention
But
to
we
it.
are racing through plot that actually involve, including Stephen Bonnet, who shows up at River Run and takes Jocasta hostage, trying to get the Frenchman's gold.
Wait,
Spoiler
that's
alert,
what-
Janine, Bonnet's dead by the end of this episode, so that will never happen.
What the fuck?
So that was in the book, yeah.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ.
So there's a
so
lot
much.
of
He's a hostage taker, isn't he?
he loves a hostage. He does.
We're about to get there.
So Forbes is getting increasingly distressed, and this is a good scene, but there is something a little bit weird, and that he's for a while he's fake writing, and Jocasta seems to know that that's happening, but hasn't really put the pieces together. She doesn't really pick up on like the increasing tension in his voice as he just gets more and more angry about all the money she's asking him to give away. Until finally he's like, "Stop giving away my second breakfast. No, stop giving away my money.
Or my precious.
My precious." She's like, "Your money? What are you talking about?" And then he tries to smother her with the pillow that Duncan placed behind her back because she's apparently an invalid. And it is terrible and upsetting. And Julie, I was watching you, it looked like you for sure thought that Jocasta was going to die.
I thought she might, and then she got the kick out and knocked the bell over, and I was like, Ulysses has to be right outside that door, and I was right.
Yeah, she kicks over a little table that has a bell on it. And then all of a sudden we see these like nicely stockinged feet in very nice shoes come running in. And then we hear a little... That was a neck cracking sound.
Yeah, he picked him up and choked him and then broke his neck.
Very good sight gag. Picked him clear off the ground like the Hobbit he is. And cracked his neck.
Holy
And then
shit.
dropped him right down into Mordor.
Jesus.
And then he ran around the couch to address Jocasta to make sure she was okay. And it kind of, for a second, we thought she was dead, right?
Yeah.
And Ulysses, was so distraught. You could tell that he really loves her.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't know exactly how I feel about that, but it's beautiful, and he's very good actor.
Wait, so that was a show wrap on Pippin?
Oh,
yeah, bye.
Oh, he did.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I wish I knew more songs from the Broadway hit Pippin to just put right in here.
He went off to find his corner of the sky.
That's because Jocasta was no ordinary actual woman. Is that what it's called?
Yeah. And Ulysses had some magic to do just for you. Good job, us.
That wins. That wins.
Virtual high five. Virtual high five.
good job,
for us on this
Yay.
one. Yay.
So that's a rep on old Forbes, and Jocasta lives to continue to give away her money gleefully to people who are not her husband, which he seems fine with. In his defense, he is just like, "Okay, my dear, I'm gonna go away now." So the rest of the episode, outside of that scene and the like occasional scenes, with one exception that we'll get to later, of the folks from the Ridge searching for Brianna, is Brianna and Stephen Bonnet and EpiPen on Shutter Island, where EpiPen is serving as like a maid, essentially. And Bonnet is totally deluded and somehow thinks maybe that he is in some kind of love story and is taking the fact that Brianna told him that Jemmy was his.
Oh, no.
Which she did because Jamie told her if she wanted to find a way to move on from this incredibly traumatic thing that happened to her, she had to find a way to let it go. If not forgive him, then let go somehow of what was poisoning her, because obviously that Jamie knows that firsthand, right?
Yeah.
That was a scene from last season I think was really well handled.
Oh, no.
Good job.
Oh, no.
But in addition to thinking that he can get all the money from River Run, he also seems to genuinely believe that this is his ticket, like this is his golden ticket into the upper echelon of society. This is
legitimacy.
And I didn't get to revisit these chapters, so I'll say more in the books. But a lot of this is an invention of the show. And I think that if there had been more time, like if this all hadn't been so rushed, that this could have been really interesting. And also if they had dialed back a little of the like
melodrama, trapped in the house, put the dress on shit.
Yeah. Because they break out all the old chestnuts. He has clothes for her to wear, and they have dinner.
God. I was so pissed. I was just like, I can't believe they're doing this.
Yeah.
It's fucking terrible.
There is an interesting piece of it in that he asks her to school him in being a gentleman. Mm-hmm. And Brianna, who is very smart and who finally they are letting do things using her intelligence, starts trying to find a way to manipulate him into, first of all, not raping her. And I'm sorry, I should say this. Obviously, we are now going to be talking about sexual assault. If that's not something you're comfortable with, jump ahead, I would say probably about 10 minutes, and there will still be bits. Lots of bits. So she starts, I mean, it's everything from like no elbows on the table. You bring the fork to your mouth, not your mouth to the fork. To like, well, at this point, you know, a lady and a gentleman would not be alone together. A lady would excuse herself to bed. At one point she says, he's like, well, what do gentlemen do with their free time? Because she, you know, says, well, I'm a lady wouldn't do that. And she says, you could read to me. And he gets this, God, Ed Spielers is so fucking good. He gets this look on his face, which is like equal parts rage and shame and humiliation.
Oh, wow.
He can't read.
Because he can't read.
Oh.
And it's like, and it's just a look. And she picks up on it and is like, or I could read to you. He's like, well, all right. Is that something you do with our son? And it's so fucking creepy.
Yes.
Yes,
terrible.
Jeremiah loves when I read to him and is just trying to manipulate the fuck out of him. And she picks up a random book off the shelf.
It's a book about husbandry,
it's
so
called The
like
Art of
farming.
Husbandry. And she says,
farming and equipment and shit.
And she says Moby Dick by Herman Melville.
Oh, fucking Christ.
Because
Awesome.
and this is an interesting idea, and this is why, like Julie, I'm cool with the fact that they sort of kind of forced the Moby Dick thing in there, because she obviously already had this book on her brain, and tells the story to find a way to talk to him about how sometimes the person who thinks he's the hero is actually the villain, right? Like, she's very clearly trying to get him because what the fuck else is she going to do to realize that Ahab is not the hero,
the good guy,
right? That like no, that's not right, and it depends on your perspective. So maybe you should think about other people's perspectives, and it does not go the way that she wants it to. But man, Sophie Skelton paraphrasing Moby Dick, because it's not there. The show does not imply that Brianna has Moby Dick memorized. At no point, and I actually think the fact that they chose this book is really smart, because there are very few more famous first lines of a book, and at no point does she say call me Ishmael, right? She says there was once a sea captain named Ahab, and he was driven by the desire to track down the white whale Moby Dick, who took his leg, and blah 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 blah. And it's very good.
Stephen Bonnet gets into it, man.
Oh yeah, he cries because he, as it turns out, and this is straight from the book, it has a potent fear of the sea in general and drowning, and not like, then why is he a sailor? I mean, he has seen presumably many men die at sea, right? And he has a fear of drowning. And God, he's so fucking good. I'm breaking a rule. He and Tobias Menzies share an ability, which is to play their fucking undeniably evil characters as though they do not think that they're evil, but also sometimes as though they know perfectly well that they are, right? And without ever playing them like the good guy.
Oh, no.
Right? And the show,
I
I think, isn't as good at that. But this episode, the fact that this episode works at all is largely due to the fact that Ed Spielers has this ability, because he's weeping about Moby Dick, and you can tell that he is delusional, but he's playing it very honestly. Am I putting this well, Julie?
Oh, yeah. He has no idea that anything he's ever done is wrong.
Yeah. It's a fucking nightmare. So they finished
one thing we forgot, though.
Yeah, hit me.
There was the dress, and then there was also the box of creepy motherfucking dolls for Jimmy. And I'm like, this has everything. The newest ball gown of some dead chick he might have human trafficked out of South Carolina. The dolls of her children. Like, it's all there.
They also look like maybe they're puppets. Like, they're vaguely Punch and Judy-ish, which that's also creepy.
Creepy.
Yeah, it's just really creepy. So at the end of the night, he's like, well, okay, now it's party time. And she's like, well, this is the point at which a lady would go to sleep. And he bows at the waist and says, then I bid you good evening, madam, and leaves. And she wakes up asleep with her feet still on the ground, having immediately changed out of the creepy nightmare ballroom dress and into her usual clothes, because of course she's sleeping with her clothes on because she's in fucking Shutter Island. So she wakes up with her feet still on the floor to see Stephen Bonnet in her bedroom with the maid EpiPen setting up breakfast.
What do I have here? Next morning, that's right, Epi is setting up the tea, and then we get the whole scene of Bree trying to bullshit a bullshitter.
Yeah.
She does really well for a long time, and then she can't seal the deal. She can't kiss him with, she can't make him believe her kiss.
Yeah, basically, she tries to
Romance novel.
convince him. It is really gross. That is the worst moment. She tries to convince him that all she wants is, like, she's accepted the new reality. They have a new understanding. All she wants is to go get Jemmy because she misses him so much. And she wants them to be able to start their lives together. And he should go look for a place for them to live. And she's going to go get Jeremiah and she'll be right back. And you can see that he is sort of falling for it, but also not really. And then he asks her to kiss him. And she does, and Sophie Skelton is very good in this moment because you can tell that Brianna is trying very hard to fake enthusiasm. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like, blah, and then she kisses him. Like, she's trying really hard to sell it. And then he says, this is the worst part of the whole fucking episode. It's just creepy. Like, and not in a good creepy way. It's just fucking creepy nonsense that doesn't make any sense at all. especially for somebody like someone megalomaniacal, right? Like this guy, there's no way that man doesn't believe that every woman he has ever touched hasn't come away totally fucking satisfied, right? Like he's that asshole. So she kisses him and he says, well, I may not know whatever fucking shit about forks and spoons and blah, 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 gentleman shit, but I do know what a kiss is.
It's one of my lucky charms.
Yeah. So and then he basically starts throwing her around, and then this is so fucking disturbing. Calls in Epi and just starts fucking her.
Shit.
It's fucking terrifying. Totally unnecessary too. We didn't
What the fuck?
They linger on it way too long.
Yeah, they do.
What the fuck? What the fuck?
Yeah, it's terrible.
No, it's just dumb. It was bad.
So he leaves to I don't know, to go get her money because she has to be paid because
Oh, yes. Epi does need to get paid for her job that she just did.
yeah. And while she's gone, Brianna's like, hey, please, I'm going to give you my wedding ring. Please fucking help me. Just, can you, please find my family? Do fucking anything. I'm being held here against my will. And it takes her a while to sort of figure out that this isn't, there's a thing where she thinks maybe it's supposed to be a threesome, but it's going to cost more, whatever. And finally she's like, I can't do this. And this is it's paraphrased of a line from a book, but she's like, 1 minute you're doing whatever, and the next minute you're on the floor breathing blood. It's that breathing blood is a Diana Gabaldon line, and it's very good. But basically, Brianna's in the process of begging her to get help when Bonnet comes back in, and Epi leaves, and you think nothing is going to come of it.
We did find out that they were on Ocracoke, which is an island I've been to.
Ocracoke.
Mm-hmm, the Outer Banks of North Carolina. I think that Blackbeard spent some time there.
Well, that's fitting. Because where else would he have gotten that dress but from a closet?
Oh, my God. The only thing I really remember, it was a good family trip, but I remember that the mosquitoes were, terrible. They were so big, and when they bit you, that bite, Allison, you wouldn't have made it out alive. I've seen her get bug bit. It's not cool.
Oh, yeah.
This was not cool for me, and I'm usually okay with it. They were like welts, man. It was terrible. It was like living in a swamp.
Well, the house isn't much better.
No.
So the next thing in that part of the story, because we'll come back, I think, to Epi and the kitty hoose in a minute. The next thing in that story, Brianna is now well and truly terrified and traumatized, and rightly so, right? It's just she was working really hard to try to get out of this using her wits, and it fell apart. He brings in some slimy motherfucker to essentially try to sell Brianna for £6.
It was intimated earlier that he had been human trafficking. Stephen Bonnet had started doing that for money.
Yeah.
So he tries to sell her, and she bites his finger and whatever. And this is, to the best of my recollection, and again, it's been a while since I read this section because I didn't review book 6 for season 5.
Jesus, yeah.
Because, by the way, the Wiley's Landing stuff, they do meet up with Stephen Bonnet, but Stephen Bonnet does not kidnap Brianna and take her to a nightmare island in this book. These are two separate stories, which is why I say it makes sense that they combine them, because it is fucking ridiculous that it happens. And neither of them involve Bonnet showing up at Jocasta's either. It's just fucking, it's a lot. So I understand why they combined it, but it's too much for one episode. So
yes,
way too much for one episode. So, Brianna, the guy, and she begs Bonnet to not sell her, and it's terrible. Meanwhile, back at the kitty house.
Yes.
Kitty house. There we go.
Miss Sylvie's kitty house.
Kitty house. They show up, the Fraser's Ridge gang, and ask to speak to the ladies. Claire says, we'd like to speak to your ladies. We think perhaps they may know someone you're looking for. And it's very obvious that all of the girls are like, who, Stephen Bonnet? Who don't know him, when they all very clearly know him.
I don't know her.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like fans out, hiding their faces. They're not going to talk about
because
him.
they just can't because he's a fucking monster. Like, of course they're
Right.
not gonna. They don't want to die, so they're not gonna. Oh, Sophie.
Sophie, man.
Wow.
So they're not gonna say
She
anything.
hates Stephen Bonnet, you guys.
She
Yeah,
does.
he's a dick.
Rightly so. Finally, Claire is talking to Epi. And I think Claire can kind of tell. Epi's a pretty good liar. But I think Claire can kind of tell that she's lying. So Epi starts to walk away. And she's obviously in pain and limping. And so Claire busts out her medicine woman shit. She's like, by the way, pardon me, miss.
I'm a healer.
Did you know that I'm the best doctor on the planet? And she says, you have a pain in your leg and also in your hip and thigh, and you limp, and it is worse in this thing, and all this information that I know about you that you have no reason to believe was gained through observation, and instead you're going to think that I have supernatural abilities. And sure enough, Epi goes, not, are you a witch? But it's like, are you a white? I don't remember what she says, but basically she goes, are you a witch? And at that point, you just assume everyone is like, oh shit, we gotta go, not again.
Monkey vest, run.
Yeah. Yep. But Claire goes, no, I'm a healer. And I think you can correct it. She takes a deck of playing cards. It's like, lift your leg. This is what we do to tables when you put French onion soup on them and they wobble.
She shims her.
Yeah.
She shims her heel.
She shims Epi.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Epi gets shimmed.
At this point, I said, Julie, I think Claire used to work at the Weber Grill.
Yes, man. Because I had to shim so many fucking bar tables at that place. Oh, God. It had this uneven tile. And if one of those little feet on the bottom of the table got in there, it's just never stable. God, I hate that shit. I hate sitting in an unstable table.
What a fun turn of phrase.
I really do. Though.
Unstable table.
Neil and I will move at a restaurant if we sit down and it wobbles like that. We'll be like, I'm sorry, can we move?
Just a heads up. That's going to be a single on our album.
Unstable table.
Unstable table.
Unstable
Nice.
table.
So she hands her the deck of cards when she figures out exactly how much shorter one leg is than the other. It's like, take this to a cobbler. Here you go. Tell them you need a pair of shoes with a larger heel on this side, and it will correct your pain and help you live a more comfortable life. She said, well, and Epi is like, I don't know about you, missus, but I don't have any extra cash later on for fancy proletariat bourgeois shoes. I'm a good girl, I am.
Is that her accent?
No, I mean, I think she has.
No.
I don't remember what her accent is, but I think she has a Cockney accent. I don't
Now
remember.
she does. She does now forever.
Well, she does now.
Yeah.
Lots of chocolate for me too. Wait, she basically she's like, I can't afford no fancy shoes. Fuck you, bitch. And Claire's like, I'd be happy to contribute. Here, take this money. Also, please tell me where my daughter is. And you can see Epi being like,
It's exactly how it goes down, Janine.
it really is. She's like, please, I want to help because it's the right thing to do, but also, please tell me where my daughter is. And you can see Epi being like, okay, well, listen. You didn't fucking hear it from me, okay? She's like, yes, of course not. Never. Would never tell a soul. So then they show up on the beach right when Brianna is about to be fucking carted onto a ship with creepy bitey finger motherfucker. And there's a big to-do. There's a stramash.
There's a stramash on the beach. They are awash in stramash.
Oh, Julie, that's one of your best.
Thank you.
So good.
Woo! I felt pretty good about that one going in.
When the dust settles, Brianna's like, don't kill him. I want him to face justice the old-fashioned way, which is a very Brianna thing to do, but which makes no sense based on the conversations this season, because they've had multiple conversations about how there is absolutely no way that Brianna would get any justice at all, because Bonnet would just say, well, she slept with me
Right.
willingly, so she's my property. So so it doesn't, it makes sense
Zero
for the
sense.
character and not sense in the show because of all of the things that they've established. And there is a way to make it doesn't matter. Point being, we skip ahead in time. Oh,
Like we do.
also Jamie, and this part actually does make sense. Jamie's like, hey, I don't know if I mentioned it, but I know the governor of North Carolina, and he sort of owes me one because he accidentally hanged my son-in-law from a tree. And that was like really not cool. So he owes me a favor. So he will definitely convict this guy. And he does. and they seem to like have rushed it through the judicial process. So
Right.
we
It's very jumpy.
we cut forward to, because again, this is from 2 books. I listened to the audiobook while I was cleaning my kitchen today. The chapter just on Wiley's Landing, nothing else, nothing with Claire and Brianna, nothing with Bonnet, just Roger and Jamie at Wiley's Landing is an hour and 10 minutes long.
What?
Oh my God.
Because there's a lot going on. And and it's maybe 5 minutes in this episode. Anyway.
Yeah, it was very short.
Yeah. So we jump ahead, and there's Bonnet, and the way that they're performing this execution is that they have people staked to like big poles in the ocean,
In the tide pool.
waiting for the tide to come in.
Oh my god.
Which is real. That happened. That was a way that people
yeah.
were executed.
With their hands chained above their heads.
Oh
You
my
can see the
God.
people that Bonnet is being executed with are already dead. They've died from exposure, dehydration,
Drowning.
who knows? But they're dead. And the water just keeps coming up and coming up and coming up. And Ed Spielers is, again, so fucking good. And he just looks terrified. And then he's yelling about something, I don't remember what. And all of a sudden, a hole appears in the middle of his forehead. Because Brianna has shot him in the head from like
And remember,
a hill.
she's a
overlooking
sure
the beach.
shot.
She is. She's a sharpshooter. Whereas Roger is just able-bodied.
Just standing there too, like. And then Roger asks her if it's mercy or revenge. And I'm like, you don't get to ask that, butthole.
Yeah, and also it just, here's the thing. It's, the final shot of the episode is very good because Sophie Skelton is very good. And she just kind of takes the shot and then walks away, right? But in the
drop
middle
kinda
of
thing.
that, Roger says, was that mercy? Or did you just want to make sure he was dead? And then she doesn't answer. But we didn't need the fucking question.
No.
It's
We surely didn't.
already, because she doesn't answer, so obviously the intent is to leave it ambiguous. And probably she doesn't even really know, right? Like, it's complicated. It's
But that's
complicated. Because again, she knows that he has had recurring nightmares about drowning. So was she, like she did in the jail, trying to find some way to, if not forgive, at least like come to terms with what happened to her by ending it on a note of mercy? Or was she there to make sure that she is the one who killed him? Was she there because she wanted to make sure he was dead, as Roger said? Like, there are any number of reasons. And there's no reason it couldn't be multiple of those reasons.
All of them.
Right?
But
Yeah.
like with the question asked, it makes it like, well, now it's a binary choice.
Yeah.
And now you.
And also, it's none of your fucking business.
And
Yeah.
and also, dude, you don't get to ask me that.
yeah, if
This-
she
this-
wants
You were
to
gonna
talk
kill him
about
too,
it,
so fuck off.
if
This
she
feels
wants
like a
to talk
mustache
about
line.
it, it is.
It
well,
was
he
very
was so
mustachy.
proud of it.
Oh my God, it was terrible.
And that in
It
the
was-
post-show
ugh.
thing, it was like Robert's talking about how they needed to work really hard to differentiate 2 characters that have nothing in common besides the fact that they're villains with long hair.
I'm sitting here in my apartment by myself with a scowl and shaking my head.
Yep.
I'm actually really annoyed
And
by
then
that.
and then he talked a lot about this last line, and then they left like 15 seconds for Meryl to be like, by the way, this was really emotionally complicated for Brianna. She had to do a bunch of this episode. It was really important character episode for Brianna. Bye. Like,
Bye.
It's just bad. So
God save Meryl.
before we
Jesus
wrap
Christ.
up, and before we get to the scales, and I promise I will keep this brief, I want to try to briefly recount for you some of the things that got left out just in the book 5 shit.
I was also supposed to remind you about a rant about something.
Forbes, we did it. Also,
Okay.
Mustache Rant, we did that too. Happy birthday, Jonna.
Okay.
Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for hanging
Thank
out
you.
with us on your
Thank you.
birthday in the Crowdcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
I hope that you got both first cake and second cake. So, some of the things that happen in the book. First of all, trying to find Bonnet takes a long time. Second, he also shows up at Jocasta's wedding, where you'll remember there was like a murder mystery situation. And Claire, the autopsy that she does in the premiere in this episode, or I guess it's the second episode this season, I don't remember which, actually happens in the wedding episode because of the murder mystery. So she has to figure out somebody swallowed glass, was killed with ground up glass in a glass of wine. Yeah, really fucking gruesome way to die. And Bonnet, first Wiley shows up, and then Stephen Bonnet shows up, and it's all very complicated. upsetting. So there's that. So they're just trying to find Stephen Bonnet. And this is after Roger and Jamie have their accord. Also, the book takes some time to acknowledge that this Wiley's Landing thing is happening while Jamie is still recovering from a massive wound to his leg.
Oh, yeah.
Which the show does not acknowledge.
Not at all. Not one bit.
It also spends some time on how Roger has complicated feelings about killing someone because he's never done it before. Here, not acknowledged. Also, when he's in the fight, he has a flashback to his very recent near-death experience and the brutal fist fight that he got into that put him in the position to have that near-death experience. Here, completely unacknowledged. There's all of that. So first, the way they find out this information about Stephen Bonnet is they're looking for it, actively looking for it. Roger sees someone that he was on the ship with when he sailed to the States with Bonnet. The colonies with Bonnet. Also, they did a really short version of the very best Stephen Bonnet monologue in all of the books. We'll come back to that. So he sees this guy, and at the same time, they're like, "Oh, are you folks here to see the dead whale?" They're like, "What are you talking about? We're just at the beach." It's like, you're not here for the dead whale, and there's a dead whale that had beached itself. So there are people taking boats out to see the dead whale. And Jamie sort of looks at the boat and is like, I suppose, because they have to get on a boat, right? So they get on the boat, and Jamie hands Claire a pistol, like real covert-like. So she's sort of hiding it in her dress, but she's got a pistol. And Jamie and Roger are like, well, they pay this guy and his friend to take them to the dead whale. And he says that it's better for him to be active. If he's going to be on a boat, it's better for him to be active. So, and Roger's like, me too. So they start rowing. And they're chatting up this dude. But like, so you know Stephen Bonnet? When did you see him last? No joke. What was he eating? They don't ask what he's eating, but the guy's like, the last time I saw him, he was eating fish pie with mashed potatoes on top. That's real. Like with crusty butts. Like that's real. He describes his meal in detail. And Jamie's like, well, if you were close enough to see his meal, I suppose you were at the table. What did you get discussed? Oh, it was the bum of the barmaid. You discussed the bum of the barmaid. Whatever. They're having this chat. And at one point, Jamie goes, do you know how to swim? and the guy's like, and Roger's like, oh, he does not. He told me once. And then Roger and Jamie just stop rowing. They hold onto their oars and they just stop rowing. And they're like, so tell us about Stephen Bonnet. And they have this stare down in this rowboat where you can tell the guy figures out that Jamie is getting violently seasick because he just keeps getting paler and clammier. But also, he's Jamie and he's huge. So there are these two dudes who are maybe just going to throw him in the water, but one of them is getting progressively more seasick. It's like a very tense, very funny, weird face-off.
That's fun.
And finally, the guy is like, well, maybe you can swim, but your wife here, I don't think she can swim. She's got all the skirts on. She's going to sink right to the bottom. And at that point, Claire is like, oh, dear. And she takes her guns out and is like, which one would you like me to shoot? Again, Claire in the books is funny. And then all of a sudden, all the information comes out. So there's Dead Whale Gate, right? There's this long sequence in which Jamie and Roger are basically forcing information out of a dude, and it's like a stare down where which one is he going to fold, or is Jamie going to get seasick? Which is going to happen first? It's a really great scene. So that's the dead whale. More shit happens after that, but we'll skip to Wiley's Landing. I fucking love the Wiley's Landing chapter because it's Jamie and Roger, and this dude who they hired drops them off, and they're there to ambush Bonnet, right? Who's coming for the whiskey. Same deal. But right as they're getting dropped off, the guy's like, oh, by the way, so with the tides, either he's going to be here in about 5 minutes because they're nearby and they are going to want to beat the tides, or he won't be able to show up for a while, in which case it'll be either late tonight or very early tomorrow. Bye! And he just leaves. And they're like, oh, well, shit. And it's supposed to rain, so maybe they're not going to be able to use their muskets, and then they'll have to use swords, and that's when they have the conversation about, who gets to kill Bonnet and whatnot. And Jamie says, if you die, I'll avenge you. And Roger's like, oh, okay, yeah, me too. And then, right. And then Jamie is like, thank you. I appreciate it. And Roger's like, oh, well, this is why they would follow him into battle anywhere, anytime. So they wait a long time. All of a sudden, a boat hits the dock. And they're like, ready. They're ready. And a door opens, and in walks a giant Russian man who speaks maybe 12 words of French and nothing else. And also his daughter, who immediately starts trying to grab Roger's balls. And then they're talking about, like, who are you and why are you here? The girl's mother shows up, also another daughter, also some kids. And then he says, La cochon, which I think is pig. I might be making it up, right?
Yeah, it is big.
And Roger's like, oh, it's pegs. They've got pegs for Philip Wiley. So they've just arrived with a shipment from Philip Wiley. And while they're trying to figure out that, like, the pigs get out, they just hear like little pig feet. And then all of a sudden another boat comes up. So Jamie's like, fuck. So he runs and hides. And Roger also runs and hides. And then he realizes that it's not Bonnet. It's this magistrate and a sheriff, because everybody's fucking corrupt. And they see Roger. And Roger's like, well, hi. They're like, Mr. Mackenzie, where's your father-in-law? He's like, well, he's not here. Where's Stephen Bonnet? They're like, oh, Mr. Bonnet wanted me to do the business instead. And it becomes very obvious that they're there to steal the whiskey and kill them both. Meanwhile, they bop the Russian guy in the head, so he's unconscious. And all of the women in his family are trying to take care of him. Then they lock Roger in the, like, Doom Hut. I'm sorry, Shit Shed?
Shit Shack.
Yeah, Shit Shack. With the Russians, who one of them is immediately like, I'm going to take the sword. One of the women is like, I know how to use it. There's a description where she swings it over her shoulder like a baseball bat. It's the coolest. Second, the rest of them have found a trap door that Roger can sneak out of. Third, he realizes it's not pigs, it's boars.
Oh, shit. That's different.
Meanwhile, Jamie is on a roof with his guns all wet, and he's trying to figure out how he can jump down and kill these people. Then all of a sudden, there's a bunch of, like, he's thinking about Claire, and Claire would have to pay the guy if he dies, and it's just internal, and there's a lot of waiting. It's very tense and very good and cool. Then he sees people coming out of the woods, and it's Philip Wiley and a bunch of his slaves, and they're there to meet the Russians. So Jamie is like, well, fuck. Philip Wiley hates me. On the other hand, he clearly wants his pegs. So I think I'm going to just jump down and go talk to him. Meanwhile, Roger has gone through the trapdoor and has snuck off into the woods. And he runs into one of Philip Wiley's slaves, and the slave says, you're not a raccoon. Because he thought he was hunting a raccoon. Anyway, Philip Wiley is like, okay, sorry, what? Russians? What? Who? What? And Jamie's like, listen, I don't have time to explain. Just know if you want your pigs, we've got to get in there. And then Philip Wiley's like, they're not pigs. They're Russian boars for boar hunting. I'm letting them loose on my property. And then I shall invite friends over so that we can fight and get to the boar. And Jamie's like, you've never hunted a boar, have you? He's like, no, I have not. But then they have this fight, and but the guys get away, and then the Russians, he invites them over for lunch, and they are tramping through the woods. When they get ambushed,
it took a turn. Jesus,
they get
that took a
ambushed by the guys who took off.
Okay,
and Roger gets beamed on the head and is out cold, and Jamie is fighting both of them at once. And then Roger comes to, and like, there's this very good line where he's talking about how none of the boars have their sea legs, so they're all stumbling around like they're drunk. And then he says that he feels like he's wandering around like one of those boars because he's, like, clearly concussed. But Jamie yells for help, and so Roger just sort of, like, swings as wildly as he can, and his sword goes directly into the guy's eye, and he feels it get through, like, the bones into the squishy bits. It's great.
Oh, wow.
So then there are these dead bodies leaving there, and they're going off to go to Philip Wiley's house to have lunch and, like, dry off before they can go to Wilmington, at which point Jamie's like, Wilmington, we got to go, Claire and Brianna, right? But they're looking at the bodies, and Roger's like, what should we do with these corpses? And Jamie says, leave it for the pegs.
Yes.
And it is so good.
That's great.
Now, to be clear, you could do and I didn't get there, but the section with Brianna and Claire is also lengthy and very intense, and Jem is involved, and I think there's picking berries, and maybe Marsley's in the woods somewhere. It's an intense sequence. And so is Shutter Island. right? So all of these things, there's a lot to them. But just Wiley's Landing, can you imagine an hour in which Jamie and Roger had to talk about like death and war and revenge and whether or not their powder is going to get wet, and then random fucking Russian boars show up?
That would
And
have
there's
been
a fight in the
insane
woods, and then it
episode.
ends, and then it
Jesus.
would end with Jamie saying, "Leave him for the pigs." Can you
That
fucking
is a
imagine?
great ending line.
Sing
There's
me a song.
My point is, that's all hot pests, right? It's character
Yeah.
shit. It's the stuff
Right.
where you slow down and just exist in the world. And the show has been better this season than most recent seasons about giving us some of those moments. But
Not this episode.
you can see, can you, like, this could be Wiley's Landing, and the next episode could be Bonnet and Claire on the beach, and the third episode could be Brianna on Shutter Island and them rescuing her, and then the recovery from it. And that's 3 hours of television, right?
Yeah.
You can
Easy.
even put a subplot in the next episode. People figure it, like Jamie and Roger trying to find Claire and Brianna, people looking for them. Maybe Philip Wiley is involved because the Philip Wiley of the books is like a fop and he's ridiculous and he's kind of a dick, but he's not a bad person. Like, he's an asshole, not an evil person. I mean, a slave owner, so obviously evil, but you know what I mean? He's like more complicated than he is on the show. By the way, we didn't even get to the fact that Jamie and Roger shake him down for information, and he gets a really, really good line that I can't even remember, but he was good.
Well, and I'm
It's-
just thinking too.
Go
I'm thinking
ahead.
too about how like this is. I mean, there's so much that's missed and so much character development that could have happened. And then I'm also thinking like Bonnet hasn't really been a part of anything for the past like 3 or 4 episodes, and like suddenly now he's back.
And dead.
dead.
Well, no, they talked about him.
Well,
They
yeah.
talked that
He's been there.
He's been a
but,
big
like,
part of the stuff they're talking about, but we haven't
and
spent
Brianna's head.
all that
Yeah,
much
we-
time with him.
Yeah, and like this is this fucking actor is apparently playing him quite well, and so suddenly like he gets his episode, knocks it out of the park, but it's almost wasted. It feels wasted. It feels like there could have been so much more.
It
to
wasn't really a
explore.
great episode.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
rushed.
and there were
Allison's right. It's just rushed.
great things in it, but the thing that's so frustrating is that there could have been way more great things, and then the things that didn't work with more time maybe could have. That kiss wouldn't have worked at all. That's a fucking dumb moment. But a lot of the stuff that was like almost good could have worked, especially given the quality of the actors, because Sophie Skelton has gotten much better, and I think she's very good in this episode. And Ed Spielers is fucking great in this episode. And with more room to breathe, like, you could have just an hour of them doing that. You could have broken it up so that Brianna is reading a quote unquote chapter of Moby Dick a night, right? And it could have been like 5 nights, because also there's
yeah.
no fucking sense of how long she's there.
Oh yeah.
Like, you could have stretched all of that out. You could have stretched out, like, what was it like for Roger to realize he was in the wrong place and Stephen Bonnet's kidnapped his wife? I have no idea. Also, there's a whole thing in this book where Roger decides that I fucking can't remember whether it's in the next book or not, because again, they jammed 2 stories together, so I'm having a hard time differentiating. But Roger starts to, without giving anything away, starts to sort of re-examine his relationship to God and religion. And so then that plays a role in him deciding whether or not he wants to kill someone, even someone who's evil. And it's just a lot of shit. It's just a lot of shit. There's a lot.
There's a lot.
And
yeah,
they cram it all into one episode for no reason, because they have already demonstrated that they are fine with rearranging the events of the books. So if there's stuff left in this book, and I don't know what they're going to, because I think the thing that's happening next is another book 6 thing. There's stuff left in this book that they haven't covered.
Yeah.
And if they want to address it, then great. But there's no reason to not do book 5 stuff next season, because they're clearly okay with moving things around. So it's just really frustrating.
Well, and I hope that when we get to that next season, or even the next couple episodes, we see the justification for this intense rushing.
Well, because it's so rushed. The snake bite was last episode. Murtagh died, 3 episodes ago?
Yeah.
Like, it's so eventful. Where is the show where Murta, and we make fun of this episode a lot, but it's actually, the more distance I get from it, the better it seems. Where is the show where, I'm sorry, I just read Julie's show note and I got distracted for a second. Where is the show where Claire and Murta wandered the countryside performing musical theater and squaring off against a band of quote unquote gypsies to try to figure out where Jamie was? Like, where's Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy? That show was interested in what happens when you're stuck. That show was interested in how long certain things take and what it means if they take longer or last longer than you want them to. Even last season, we spent basically a whole episode with Roger in Doom Hut Volume 2, right? It was too rushed. And Brianna's captivity, I mean, like, as a person who likes the character, I don't want her to be in peril for a huge long time, but she disappeared to a remote island. Like, you know, it's a big
in
deal.
colonial America, man. That's not an easy fix.
It's not. It's really not. It just doesn't make any sense. So
What a frustrating episode.
I want the hot pests. I want the Russian boars. I want the show to have that streak of surreality. And even if they had done Wiley's Landing plus Claire and Brianna in the woods getting ambushed by Bonnet, that it still would have been a little bit overstuffed, but that I could understand. And then what happens to Brianna, right? Then we could have a whole episode just focusing on, because this is a huge traumatic thing. A rape victim is abducted by her assailant, right?
Yeah.
There should be room for that to breathe. Anyway, I'm going to read the book 6 stuff again. I'm actually recording right now. Hi, Neil.
All right, I'm back. Yeah. He didn't know I was already on.
That's okay. I'm going to do some in the book stuff on this week. If you're a Patreon backer, look for that, and we'll talk about it more. But yeah, so on a scale of we'll start with sex. On a scale, well, there's a beach involved, so we'll do that. On a scale from racing your mother on a beach while whales frolic nearby to From Here to Eternity, where does this fall on the sexual content scale?
Oh my God. I don't even know if I have anything, because the one sex scene is so terrible and unnecessary and violent. And
what is that Jared Leto movie?
Which one?
There's got
with the drugs.
Which one?
Brown Bunny.
Fucking great.
Requiem for a
good
Dream?
point. Requiem for a Dream.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. There you go.
Yeah, just fucking disturbing. You're just like, why the fuck? What the fuck did I just watch?
It's very disturbing.
Yeah.
Although, you know what? Maybe the whales were fucking.
Ooh.
Whale fuck, whale fuck, whale fuck, whale fuck, whale fuck, whale.
Then I'm gonna give that a straight Free Willy.
Oh shit!
Oh, you know what's another good hand job pun? Free Willy.
Free Willy.
It jumps over the pier, and the white caps crash.
Oh man! Really
all right.
feeling that release. That's
so costume scale on a scale from let's say, I'm trying to think of just examples of this trope.
Oh, where a guy dresses somebody up.
Yeah, because I've got a really good.
Oh, My Fair Lady.
I've got a really good high end one. Oh, see, that's another good high end one. But but no, we'll go with something.
Ladybug.
No.
Ladybug. What about
The Ladybug's the soccer movie with the.
Oh my God! But
right.
that's dressing up a little boy. Different.
Oh yeah.
So on a scale of a production, a black box college theater production of My Fair Lady, where Henry Higgins forces Eliza Doolittle to change out of her all black clothes into another set of all black clothes. That's the low end. To the high end, Disney's animated Beauty and the Beast. The rare exception to the wow, that's pretty creepy rule, because at least in the Disney version, it's, if you don't think about it too hard, it's really fun and lovely. And she does actually want to be there eventually.
Eventually.
Yeah. Where does it fall?
Well, definitely not Beauty and the Beast. Oh man. There are so many examples of this trope, and I'm just right now having a hard time coming up with any of them. But it happens all the time. Fucking She's All That.
Okay.
There you go. The modern retelling of Pygmalion.
You know what's funny? I was on a podcast earlier today and was talking about a specific trope and said, "Was I a bet?" So it's my second She's All That reference of the day.
There you
All
go.
right, last. Getting up to get a beer. On a scale of you're tied to a... Nope, because that's the high end. So the high end is you're tied to a post in the ocean, so you literally cannot get a beer. And the low end is you've chosen to employ your favorite sex worker temporarily as household staff. Where does it fall in your ability to get a beverage?
I'm going to say if it hadn't been for the crowdcast, I would have put it solidly at technical difficulties, and then I might not have finished watching the episode.
Really?
No, I'm being sarcastic. Of course, I would watch the stuff that I have to talk about. I don't know. I just really, really did not like this episode, so it's hard for me to be all that funny about it, except for a wash and stramash.
What do you... A wash and stramash. Do you agree that the performances were good?
I thought Ed Spieler's was really good, but it just that the whole take her to take a hostage to the island and dress her up and make her eat fancy food and all that shit just really, really got me down, man.
Oh yeah. That is the worst.
Right.
It's not a good trope.
No.
The Moby Dick shit was good though.
I enjoyed her retelling Moby Dick and reading the husbandry book. That was a good bit, and Ed Spieler's performance was good. But overall, this episode really gave me kind of not great vibes. Reminded me a little bit of why maybe the source material isn't for me sometimes. And just kind of got me down.
Although again,
but part of that could just be because I'm fucking down.
well,
Life
it
sucks.
does suck. I will say, I think that here the adaptation is doing the source material a bit of a disservice because I will ding Diana on all kinds of things, but all of the stuff addressed here is more subtle in the book, and some of that is unavoidable, right? Novels and books and TV shows are not the same thing. You can never get the same level of insight, right? But they have made changes that have improved, right? They've bringing back Ian when they did was fucking inspired.
Yes.
It's improved every scene that he's in because it's made it all more interesting in various ways. The insistence on rushing through plot as though people read these books for plot and not and not for lots of other things. And some of that is a sex joke, and some of that is they're really immersive, and some for better and for worse, you fall into them a little bit. It just is a massive miscalculation.
Yeah,
anyway,
got me
Danny, we lost Janine. So
All right, I'm going to have to give the computer up now because I got Neil standing over me.
okay, you go ahead. I'll finish all the shit by myself.
Okay, but first of all, thank you so much.
Oh wait, who's your golden pamplemousse? I'm sorry, platinum pamplemousse.
Oh, my golden pamplemousse is Ed Spieler's.
Spieler's.
I mean, I didn't like the role, and the role is very obviously one that's been well worn before, but I think he did a really good job, and I really love the stuff around Moby Dick that he and Sophie did.
Yeah, cool. And you said, but first what?
Oh, but first I was just going to say thank you, and thank you to all of our listeners, because this week on the Facebook page, I got at least 20 handjob jokes in a row, some of which we hadn't seen yet. And I'm like, the right people are listening to our show. So thank you. Thank you all.
Yeah, here. Speaking of thanks, go ahead and take off, Julie. We
All right, see ya.
Want to thank all of our listeners. We love doing the show, and it means so much to us that you actually listen to it. That you're like, yeah, 2 hours of handjob jokes. That sounds like my cup of tea. So we want to thank all of you, but in particular our patrons who support us through Patreon. And of those patrons, we especially want to thank Dr. J, Zena Perez, Stella Welch, Misty Ojepi, Kayla Reagan, Amanda Newton, Jen Lander Drunklin, Trish McCrary, Lori McGuire, Katie Kirshner, Beth Locke, Ashley Thigason, Tigason, Ashley, let me know how your last name is pronounced. Send me a message through Patreon or Slack or whatever. Kristen, Rochelle Lefevre, The Other Janine, John Samoski, Amy Gustafson, Mary the Falling Statue, Tori, Shannon Duffy, Alicia Glenn, Liz Peniston, Philip Nacco, Heather Moore, Amanda Smazams, Whitney Harrington, Chrissy Shively, Maria, Emma Lofald, Samantha Smith, Jenna Polkowski, Rachel Townsend, Steph Peterson, Tara Lucchino, Catherine Marshall Eastman, Chantel Salters, Mary Lumpkin, Crystal Annavati, Ann Gibson, Ruth McCormick, Kara Marlowe, Flourish Root, Friday Payton, Kathleen Moniz, Hi Mom, Heather Robbins, Viv Pickles, aka Laura, and our official Slack Den Mother, Kiki the Wise. We want to thank you in particular. If you would like to back the show on Patreon and join our Slack channel, which is $3 a month, and get bonus episodes, which is $5 a month, and do the Crowdcast, which I think is, I don't know what dollars a month that is. You can do that by going to patreon.com/podlanderdrunkcast. You can also follow us on social media at twitter.com/podlandercast. You can follow us on Facebook at podlandercast, facebook.com/podlandercast, and all stuff and all these good things and this and that and whatnot. Y'all are great. I'm so sad and lonely. I'm so sad and lonely. Not really. Things are good. Bye.